In this video, I'm going to show you 8 money blocks that are holding your Airbnb business back. My name's Dave. My Airbnb business controls over 75 properties, doing over £4 million a year. Now, I define a money block as an incorrect assumption or way of thinking, a thought process that spending money on a certain thing is bad, and that if you don't spend the money on that thing, that's actually good. Now look, I get it. Starting and running an Airbnb business can seem like an absolute money pit. There's so many unexpected things that you need to pay for, and then you see people like me and other people talking about how you need to get like channel managers and tech and people and VAs and systems and all this stuff, and you're thinking, yeah, that sounds all well and good, but that sounds also expensive. And if you're coming from a real estate or a property investing background, you're always taught to keep the costs to an absolute minimum. Buy the cheapest house on the street, furnish it with the cheapest furniture that you can get, lick a paint on the walls, just replace the doors on the 30-year-old kitchen.
Keeping it cheap.
And why are you taught that? Well, it's because it works in that sector. But Airbnb is completely different. In most places around the world, there's a housing shortage, which means any old crap that you bring to the letting market will be snapped up almost instantly. Whereas in Airbnb, it's the opposite. In most places, there are like far more Airbnbs available than there are guests to fill them. So the guests have their pick of the properties. Now, I'm not going to be showing you how these money blocks are costing you bookings, but also how you're actually paying for these money blocks with something much more important than money, your time. So let's get into it. Now, the first money block I hear people say all the time, whenever I'm speaking to them on calls, they're wanting to get started, they're researching their area, and I say, have you done Airbnb? And they say, that's a bit expensive, isn't it? So the money block here is, Airbnb is too expensive, why would I pay for that? I can just do it myself for free. And to be honest, you can do a lot of it for free. I've done some videos on this channel about how you can research an area and get lots of information, and it is free. But the problem with this money block is, yes, it's saving you money because you're not paying for Airbnb, but it's costing you your time because you're going to have to trawl through all the listings on Airbnb, take out all the wee data points, make yourself a wee spreadsheet, put it all in there. It takes ages. It can become overwhelming because you're just seeing all these search results everywhere. You're thinking, is this property like mine? Is this like mine? That's a 3-bed. Oh, that's just new on. There's so many ways to where this can just swallow up all your time. And what I see happening time and time again is that people become overwhelmed and they actually don't take any action because they're just like so paralyzed by the analysis that they just don't know how to take the next step forward. And that's made even worse if you're trying to decide on properties in different locations, different towns, different cities. When you go on Airbnb or any of the other ones, everything's there, clear. It's really easy to make decisions, to compare different properties, different areas. It's so much easier. It makes things faster, and you're biased towards action, so you're more likely to get started, to get live, to get bookings, and to start making that money back. Number 2 is people who will not pay for a good enough property for Airbnb. Touched on it at the start. You're taught in so many real estate or property investing courses and journeys and books to go and get the cheapest property that you can get because you can do it up and add value, and that's where your return, your yield comes from. But in Airbnb, it's completely different. The most important thing with this Airbnb is the location.
Location, location, location.
And if you find a property in a really red hot location, it's gonna cost more money. It's not the case that you can buy cheap property in an area that's sort of run down, which is why it's cheap, do it up really nice on the inside, and then expect that it's gonna be fully booked. It just doesn't work like that. And with Airbnb, you're probably gonna have to buy a property that if you were doing your calculations or your formulas for your standard property investing for buy-to-lets or for real estate in America, those numbers might not add up for standard tenants, but they will smash it for Airbnb, because if you get a property in the hottest street or hottest building in town, hottest postcode, and you put that live, bookings are going to come flying in. So the investment in paying that little bit extra for a better property pays for itself so many times over. So don't be that guy or girl who tries to find the cheapest property and then wonders why is no one booking it. Number 3 is getting a property. Maybe you've spent a wee bit more to buy it, but then you fill it with cheap and nasty furniture. Stuff that you find on Facebook Marketplace, stuff that you've had sitting around at home, stuff that you've just found for free in random places, and you've just plugged it all in and you think, there's a sofa, there's a table and chairs, there's beds. It ticks all the boxes. It's not a case of just a checklist of you need this, this, and this. There should be some sort of like vibe in the place, some sort of like thought process about how your property actually looks like. I'm not saying that you have to go and buy the most expensive furniture out there. In fact, I'm saying please don't do that. Buy something that's quality, that looks nice as well, that fits in just the general vibe of your property. Because remember, people view the property in search results, they view the images, and if it looks crap, people are just gonna think, I'm not staying there. Look at this one. This is much nicer instead, and book it. So you're saving money by not spending a lot on furniture, but it's going to cost you bookings in the long run. Next up is people who won't pay for cleaners. Now, we've all been there. I personally have been there. I used to clean my 2 properties myself back when I started, and then when I decided I was going to get cleaners in, I did have people say to me, why on earth would you pay someone to clean that when you can just clean it yourself? Like, it's not a hard job, just you do it. And that does logically make sense. And like with all these money blocks, it makes sort of logical sense, but you have to sort of step back and look at it in a different way to realize why it's an incorrect assumption. Number 1, if you're the one who's cleaning your properties after every check-in, you are facilitating everyone else's holiday at the expense of your own, because you're never going to be able to get away if you have to be there to clean the property. The only way you will get away is if you close off availability, and then you're not making any money. But also, more importantly, because you're there doing the donkey work, cleaning the toilet, hoovering, wiping things down, you're sacrificing your time, which is high value time that you own and the high value skills that you have. You're sacrificing it for those low level tasks of cleaning. And in reality, anyone can clean a property to varying degrees, and that's a question for another video. Anyone can clean that property. Not everyone can do the guest customer service, the communication, dealing with your rates, dealing with all the other bits and pieces that come to you as a business owner. So you need to be focusing on those high level, high value tasks and leveraging out those low value, more menial tasks that anyone else can do. Next up is people who will not pay for professional photos. Now, I know you've all got your iPhone 16 world beating plus thing, Grand Prix, and I've got a Samsung S24 Ultra. They're both fantastic phones with fantastic cameras on them, but you're not a photographer who knows through experience and has the lighting gear and knows all the angles to shoot things at. So the camera might be great, but the way you're taking the photos is not going to be so good. And if you upload average photos where you're like showing weird things like a big close-up of the desk or close-up of some other random thing, and just photos that just don't have a flow, a vibe, attract people, like draw people's eyes into them when they're seeing a search result screen full of like 12 different listings, you need something that's going to stop the scroll, zoom people's eyes into your place, get the click, and then get the booking. And if you don't do that through professional photos, people are just going to scroll on by. Next up is people for the thought process of, why would I pay for an expensive channel manager? I've only got 1 property, sure, I can just link up the iCals myself. I don't need to pay for that. And now, of all of these, there is an argument to be said that you might not need a channel manager when you've only got 1 property, but there are very good reasons of why you should get one. First up, if you have 1 property and you list it on Airbnb and Booking.com and you're linking those calendars through an iCal thing, that's fine. You probably won't get any double bookings, but when you need to change things, like you need to change availability or change rates, you've got to log into each one of those platforms independently, and there's a real potential chance of making a mistake and putting your rate, instead of $199, you might put it at £1.99 or $1,999. Once you're making those changes in multiple different places, things can go wrong. You're also, if you're only on those 2 platforms, missing out on the potential of like millions of other guests, certainly millions of other eyeballs that you can get access to by being on a channel manager, which just with a click of a button puts you on millions of different platforms like Expedia, Hotels.com, all those other ones that if you were just managing it manually, you would never do. And as well, it just saves you time. You go in, this channel manager, one-stop shop, you make a change once there, you change your photos, it pushes it out to all the different listings itself. You don't need to go into each separate one, rearrange them all yourself. You just do it there, it pushes it all out, it saves you so much time. And it can also automate messages and all these sorts of things. Like, there's so many time-saving things and like return on investment in terms of your time, but also your money as well, that in my opinion, it's a no-brainer. It's worth every penny for a good one. Next up is people who look at rate pricing software like Price Labs and say, yeah, it's too expensive. Now for me, this is probably the easiest one to justify in terms of an actual return on investment. We didn't use any rate pricing software for years. Then we started off using one, and then we changed to Price Labs. Now, the increase in our revenue from when we started using Price Labs was absolutely insane. I'm talking like 30% increase in revenue.
Wow.
And Price Labs costs pennies compared to that. Now I know that you're maybe looking at the Airbnb smart pricing and you're thinking, well, this is free, it's included, why would I not just use it? And my answer to you would be, well, that's made by Airbnb. All Airbnb wants is for Airbnb viewers to become Airbnb guests and to keep using the Airbnb platform. They don't really care about us as hosts, they care about themselves first, guests second, and us third. So what their smart pricing is going to do is just make your property on Airbnb so much cheaper than any other platform, so that guests book it there. And it's going to make it super cheap for guests. So you'll get tons of bookings, but you won't really make any money. Once you start using independent programs like Price Labs or Wheelhouse or Beyond Pricing, any of those ones, those only exist to make us money, us as operators. They work for us. Think about it. If they didn't work, if they didn't give us more money, more bookings, better bookings, no one would use them. But these companies exist like they're smashing it, they're making millions, I don't know how much they're making, they're doing well, and that's because their algorithms work. They work for us, and not only do they make more money for us, but they save us so much time. So again, if you're managing your rates manually, first off, definitely do not just set and forget them. I mean, yes, that's going to save you time, but my god, that's the worst thing you could ever do. So if you are in there fiddling about and making changes, like the time involved in going into Airbnb, changing it, into booking.com, changing it the same, like that takes so much time. So many mistakes can be made there. Like using Price Labs is going to do it far better than you, far quicker than you, and far more effectively than you. It knows way in advance. It knows right tomorrow. It knows everything about the market far more than you do. It is the biggest and best investment, probably after the photos, that you can make. Next up is not replacing things in your property when they start to get old and beat up and tired. And again, this might be a hangover thought from property investing or real estate investing, where you look at something and say, that's probably fine. And that's because, again, if you look back to the seesaw, the supply is so restricted and the demand is so high that even potential tenants will look at it and think, that's fine, I could live with that. But in Airbnb, that's not the case. First up, you're getting people who are booking your property who have seen your photos, professional photos that may have been taken a year ago when everything was brand new. And if everything doesn't look brand new when they arrive, they're going to be disappointed. And when people arrive and if things aren't looking that good or a bit tired, a bit beat up, they're going to start leaving it in reviews. And once you get runs of bad reviews and your bookings drop, your nightly rates drop, and it's just such a negative way to be. So keep on top of your property, of all your furniture, of everything in it. Keep it looking brand new, replace it when needed, because these things are investments. These are what people are paying for to come and experience. Now, money blocks are just one of the things that can completely derail your Airbnb business, but there are plenty more banana skins that you need to watch you don't trip on. And I lay out 13 of the biggest ones in this video, and of course I'm going to tell you how to actually avoid them. So first, click that wee subscribe, and then click that watch that video. See you next time.